Stronger plants, better resistance, and bigger buds. Silica does all that for you and more, but only if you use it in the right way. Let's talk about the best silica for your grow and how to use them properly. Hey, but before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Growers Grow Dots, the easiest way to feed your high-value plants. You mix Grow Dots in once at the beginning of your grow, and they feed your plants all the way to harvest. You don't have to worry about nutrient burn or nutrient lockout. Grow Dots does all the hard work for you. Check them out over realgrowers.com. And while you're there, use coupon code Scotty420 to get 20% off your first order. Now let's get back to the show. Come on, High C, let's talk a little silica.
Okay, so before we get into it, I know a little bit about silica. It's not like a very popular thing. A lot of growers aren't as familiar with it.
It's popular for those that know. It's not essential. You know how we talk about the N, P, and K, the primary, the secondary, and then trace elements, the micronutrients? It's not any of those.
Okay.
But what we've noticed is when you have silica in the soil, don't forget, there's tons of sand, and there's all that is made out of silica. As that slowly weathers, it is uptaken by the plant, and plants that uptake silica are healthier and stronger than the plants that don't.
Okay, so we're going to have story time real quick.
Yes, sir.
First thing I noticed, in your grow, middle of winter, you had your air conditioner go out.
Yep.
You went and opened the door and all this steam came out. And immediately I thought, oh my God, that's way too much humidity.
Yes. And that's a huge issue, man. You look at that point when you have these big buds and you have high humidity, you can get bud mold. You can certainly get powdery mildew. Both of those are such a huge concern then. And it hurts, man, when you're in week 6 of flower that you've just totally done all the work. You have a beautiful harvest. God, you don't want to lose it to powdery mildew or bud mold.
But you didn't.
I didn't. I don't know if you noticed right there. You looked over. That's where all that bud is, man. And it's a bunch of beautiful bud. No hint of powdery mildew. No hint of bud mold. And what was I doing this round? I was experimenting with silica hardcore. I was using my amorphous silica. I was testing the monosilicic acid. And it works.
Okay, so silica, from what I know, you like to use it, or you've been interested in it because you grow these giant buds. Sometimes your plants look like they're about to lean over. You wanted stronger stems. Is that something that silica boasts?
Absolutely, man. When you have more silica in your stems, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think that they're going to be a little bit more bendable, just a little bit stronger in general. So they're going to be able to hold those bigger buds. So that's the first thing. The plant, as the plant is getting loaded up, or that stem is getting loaded up with bud, it understands it wants to survive. It's not just going to keep on packing bud up and breaking the stem and being like, oh, I'll throw some more bud up there. If the stem is strong enough, it'll make a big old bud. If the stem is not strong enough, it will provide what it can until it gets a signal no more.
Okay, so having that extra silica, help me understand, what is it that silica actually does when it gets inside of the plant?
It actually gets deposited in the cell wall of the plant, so of the plant tissue, and it strengthens that cell wall up. And if you think about silica, if the cell wall is made of silica, all of a sudden it changes the desirability of that plant to, I'm thinking about the bugs, and I'm thinking about the molds and mildews. A mold spore goes and it has this hyphae, and it plants it inside the plant tissue. It just makes space and plants it right in there. If it can't do that because now this plant tissue isn't normal tissue, it's got a bunch of silica in there, and it can't plant its hyphae. So it just said, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to thrive here.
Okay. So a lot of reasons to have silica in your mix. Stronger plants, though, seems to be like the overall theme of the conversation.
Come on, man. Stronger plants that can hold bigger buds. That's the theme of the conversation, man. That are more disease and pest resistant. That's a big deal.
Okay, so let's talk about, you mentioned one specific type of silica, but I know that there's a few different options out there. Let's talk about what the different variations of silica are that are on the market.
Yes, let's do it, because there's huge differences in bioavailability, in price. Let's talk about it.
Okay, this first one was the first one that I came across, and I brought it to your attention, and you were like, no, don't use that.
Silicon dioxide. Silicon dioxide is sand, it's glass, and you can get silicon dioxide powder. And man, unfortunately it gets a tiny bit complicated, but there's a silicon dioxide powder that comes from, I think, cutting glass. It's the same thing as really fine ground up sand, and it's hard. If you think about glass, it's a crystalline structure, and if you breathe it in, it cuts. They call it silicosis. It will cut your lungs.
Oh. Okay, definitely don't want that.
Really, really bad stuff. Silicon dioxide, the classic silicon dioxide, is no good.
And
it won't break down. It won't become bioavailable anyhow, man. It has to weather, and it takes months for it to start breaking down. And
so if I add it in right at the beginning of my grow, it's still not broken down.
Yes.
And plant available even by the time it comes to harvest.
Yes, but now can I throw a wrench into things? There's something called amorphous silica. And unfortunately, it's also silicon dioxide. It's just in a non-crystalline structure. That stuff's pretty cool. I've been playing around with that stuff lately. That quickly, it takes about a week or two, and then it breaks down into the plant-available silica, this monosilicic acid. So that's a doable. I'm actually playing with that. That was one of the experiments that I did that I had success with. So amorphous silica. And if you're trying to, draw a parallel, I guess, diatomaceous earth, which we've been using for a long time, safe for organic production. Diatomaceous earth is amorphous silica. It's just a natural one. When they make it, when they fume it or however they make it in the laboratories, it is super plant available.
Okay, and this stuff you said within about a week and a half, it starts breaking down and becomes plant available?
Yep. Silicon dioxide does not do that. Different crystalline structure. Sorry to make that complicated.
No, that's okay. So that was kind of like out of the experiment, that was your favorite of them?
Yes.
But there are some other viable options out there as well. I can't even pronounce it.
I got it, man. It's super easy. Monosilicic acid. That's the plant available form of silica. That's the only silica that the plant can absorb.
And that one, I've seen some products out there that are that. Tell me the pros of that, because that one actually seemed pretty exciting to me.
Excellent. Yes, definitely. But just so you know, since that's the only one that plants can absorb, monosilicic acid, all these other things we talk about slowly break down into monosilicic acid. The amorphous silica slowly, there's microbes, break that down into monosilicic acid. So yes, that's what we want. So by the way, that's kind of the expensive stuff. Usually you'll see that's like $100 a bottle or something. It is super plant available. That's why that is the purest form of silica you can get, and that's I think I can prove it to you, probably your best bang for the buck.
When I was looking at it, I did notice there was another option out there we'll talk about in a second.
Sure.
But the monosilicic, it was definitely way more expensive, but it looked like I wouldn't have to use as much of it.
I want to say it's either 0.5, a half of a milliliter, so a tenth of a teaspoon. Compared to the other silica products, the Silica Blast and all those we'll talk about, potassium silicate products, they use 5 mils a gallon.
Oh, that's like 100.
10 times.
10 times, okay.
It's exponentially, man.
Okay, I'm not the best at math. So I can pay a little bit more for the pure silica stuff that's immediately plant available. I don't have to use as much of it, though.
I tell you, I'll bring up the last thing we should bring up is potassium silicate. Potassium silicate is the Silica Blast, and all those products have been out here for decades.
I did find a bunch of those. It seemed like those were actually more popular.
Yes, because they're cheap. You can buy a bottle of it for $25. But what you got to understand is potassium silicate, you're getting a bunch of potassium in there, and potassium is a heavy molecule. I want to say it's 38 or 39. You're getting a lot of potassium in there, and then the silica, because it's bonded to the potassium, it doesn't break down to become plant available. It's like 20-30% plant available after time. That's where that monosilicic acid is immediately plant available, and literally you're using 1/10 of the amount of monosilicic that you are with the potassium silicate, and you're getting a lot of potassium. Just because I want a little bit of silica in there doesn't mean I need a bunch of potassium in there.
Well, what I was thinking when I was looking at it is if I'm using this stuff, I'm not even getting the full silicate that's in there. Plus, I'm getting a bunch of potassium. Does that affect my feeding schedule? Does that affect my pH levels?
I mean, we have NP and K. Potassium is the K. So when you start adding a bunch of extra K, you theoretically could be throwing your nutrients out of balance.
Okay, so I'm narrowing it down. I'm looking at the monosilicic acid. I'm looking at the amorphous silica. Both of those look, they both look like they might be something I want to add to my grow.
Sure.
You mentioned microbes though, and you said one of them I don't need microbes with, the other one I do need microbes with.
Yeah, the amorphous silica is this it's like a powder, so it's not water soluble. It sits in the soil and then it gets slowly broken down by microbes. When I say slowly, it takes 10 to 14 days to break it down. The cool thing about it is I've been playing around and adding it every 10, 14 days as a top dress, or as a top water rather, getting it into the soil. So I've got this slow release of silica. You know, I'm into the slow release stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how to get a slow release of silica in there, and it worked really well.
If I'm you mentioned microbes. If I'm using recharge, which of course
Sure.
I am, can I mix it in with my recharge, or do I need to do it separately?
Man, I will say this. Thank you for that. Silica can be really reactive. That potassium silicate stuff we're talking about, the lesser expensive, the Silica Blast and all that, it is really reactive. So if you pour it in a reservoir that has a whole bunch of nutrient in it already, in concentration, you're pouring this super concentrated silica. They call it precipitating out of solution. It turns into this weird gel. Zero plant availability there. So what you want to do with that potassium silicate specifically, add it first. If you're adding it to your reservoir, add it first. It's going to raise the pH up a bunch, and then put your nutrients in, and then lower the pH.
Okay, if I add it and then you say add it first, then immediately add nutrients, or do I need to wait and let it cycle through?
You don't need to wait too long. I mean, mix it around. But it just has to be diluted. You can't just put super concentrated potassium silicate in your reservoir because it's reactive. Now, that's another cool thing about that monosilicic acid. You can throw that in whenever. It's just non-reactive like that. It's already in that plant available form, so it's cool.
What about if I'm going with the amorphous silica?
Amorphous silica? Yeah, amorphous silica is non-reactive. Remember, it needs to get microbially broken down. So what you're watering that in, and then you're letting the microbes break it down. So yeah, the only one that you really have some hard and fast rules for is the potassium silicate. That's easy. You just mix it in first, and that will mess with your pH too. So pH at the end. I do have one note about the amorphous silica because I've been using it. I've been loving it, but you have to just mix it immediately. I put it in my 2-gallon watering can once a week when I use the recharge, but I throw it in there, I mix it, and then I immediately apply it because it's a solid. It is just like it's consistency of like baby powder or something like that. So it will eventually settle to the bottom. And I'm just playing with this stuff now.
Okay, and you mentioned you just mix it in with your recharge, or do you do 2 separate waterings?
No, mix it in with, and that's what's really cool. It's non-reactive. With a lot of those other silicas, I have to worry about mixing it in, not mixing it with anything else, worrying about it precipitating out of solution, turning into that gel. I don't have to worry about this because it's not plant available yet. I'm physically just depositing it in the soil so the microbes can go to work.
Okay, so let's recap.
Sure.
What are your top 3 favorite, and start with number 3 working to number 1.
Number 3 would be the potassium silicate. It's cheap. It's available. If you know how to work with it, it's not so bad. You mix it in first. You have to adjust the pH. It's going to spike your pH up. But once you learn how to use it, not so bad. I tell you what, man, this is, I'm torn between this, but I'll go with the monosilicic acid as my second. That's completely plant available. All I got to do is when I mix my reservoir, when I mix my nutrients, water it in. It's a great product. It is expensive. I got to, it's over $100 for a bottle of it. And then what I played with, and I really enjoy, it's only been a harvest for me, but that amorphous silica. It's not plant available. It takes about 2 weeks to get going. I water it in with my recharge, and then it's a slow release, steady stream of silica. That really treated me well this time. Hey, but that is just me. But what about you? Have you used silica in your grow? If so, what's your favorite kind of silica? Let me know in the comments. And if you dug this video, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, share this video with another grower you know, and check out the other couple videos YouTube's recommending. I think you'll dig them.